Today we talk about how to play Clair de Lune from Debussy's Suite Bergamasque. And this is actually one piece from his four pieces suite, and this is the third one. So before you start, knowing that there are five flats, we call it D flat major, meaning that we will be using all five flats, all the black keys right here. Okay, so let's dive into what to do with this piece. So let's start right here, the first four measures. So I like to decipher it with fingerings actually. So the left hand, we have start with F and A flat. And then next I'd like to use 3 and 1 on G flat and A. And then I come back to this on the third measure, and then I'm going to use 3 and 5 on the fourth measure, so that you can see that I am not repeating any fingers in this case. And now let's talk about musically. So the first measure, we do like a bounce, like a springboard from this left hand to the right hand, and then coming to D flat and F. Even though this is in D flat major, but not in a moment in the beginning that you feel like it's Debussy settled in the D flat major. So, and also one common thing to forget is that the first beat is actually a rest. So in this case, if you want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So make sure you're not making an accent on the first chord. And second measure, I like to do a little bit of crescendo to create this sort of singing quality. So in this case, we do wanted to flatten our fingertips a little bit so that we could create this sort of very lyrical feeling to the notes. And I also like to mention that I like to use my left hand as a guideline for my paddle. So in this period of time, you can use lots of paddle, but still following the harmonies that the composer outlines. So always notice the pattern. So starting from second measure, third measure to fourth measure, Debussy uses sort of this parallel third, and then so that's how he creates all those moving lines. Almost reminds me of Bach actually, and then as we go on to the next phrase, and then this time so I like to mention that it's very easy for this 9/8 to become very sagging, and we still have Andante and Espressivo as our tempo marking. So try to keep this kind of flowing, going forward feeling, especially when you have moving notes. Try to not do note by note. So how do we create a line? Do we sort of create almost like you're drawing a mountain and a bigger mountain? So just follow the shape of the melody and take it out to practice, and the crescendo as you come to the end, and then you keep going again. And just listen to where the note leads you. Okay, and now here we comes to the second time the theme appear. So imagine that you're throwing a little rock into the pond and it has all these echoes. And then this time he added different harmonies. So in this time you really need to keep the pedal, and quickly I will use 2 and 5 on D flat and G flat, and then jump to this also G flat major chord, but I like to use 5 3 2 1. So you will need to press the pedal down, not leave it until it changes harmony, which is next measure. So and then next measure also he uses this kind of has a pedal tone. So you basically make sure your pedal captures this chord, and then you can leave to jump to the next layer of harmonies. Yeah. So and then this has to happen very quickly without making accents. So I would encourage you to practice without looking at the notes. And then that happened again, the G flat major chord, and the next one. So this is a slightly different chords. Make sure you're reading the note right. So basically F and C flat, this is a diminished fifth. And then you got this one, also sort of augmented fourth or diminished fifth, depends on which way you look at it. They are interchangeable, and then they attempt to resolve, but it didn't get resolved at all. So I would like to always practice hands separately and trying to figure it out, all these different layers and how to chase where they're going, like where the voice leadings are going. And now right hand, I will always try to voice the inner chords a little bit less by anchoring it to the best position for my hand to play the top. So you can hear I basically have the bass and then have the middle layers playing this chord, but they're not conflicting me to bring out the top. And then next one, I will change pedal and capture that, and then put the pedal back down, and then but you can hear all the layers, and then again do that again, change the chord, lift up the pedal and press the pedal down, capture that, and then keep moving. And then after you do that, you can leave, because your hand doesn't have to hold down there the whole time, because it doesn't change how the sound is already happening. Okay, the next page is a very signature page. So again, it has a very low, you probably can see on this camera, but then I have a low E flat octave. And again, this is pianissimo, but try to not play too soft, because you have nowhere to go. So Debussy did a very beautiful sort of parallel octave. And then now you add the middle part. Basically, the middle note didn't change. Same as the left hand. And again, even though you're playing chords, still trying to be as musical on the phrasing as you can. And then the low octave again. So you can think about the fingering. I sort of like to group them without changing my position too much. So now I change the bass note to A flat. Everyone be very careful of the notes. Read all of the right notes. And slowly it's crescendoing. And so with glissando, I start with my left hand first, and then I play my right hand. And then you have this un poco mozo, so you move a little bit forward. So always pause and practice and trying to make sure your wrist is not locked at one position at any given point, trying to anchor to your thumb or your pinky so that you can create a line and also it doesn't get stuck. So now there's a different texture in the poco mozo. Sorry. So you can see that there's a lot of arpeggio. I like to utilize my my arm and my wrist as much as possible. So, and I also flatten my fingertips. So again, fingering is key here. I basically break my hands exactly how Debussy wrote it. So the same harmony happens twice. So, and then I need to bring out the top. And here I will change pedals every dotted quarter note. So you can hear that it doesn't get too muddy. And as it goes on, here I actually use one pedal over the whole measure because you can see from the left hand is all D flat major chords, right? So that you can know, counting on your left hand, you know exactly what to pedal. So make sure you're playing the right notes. If you get everything right, it should be an E flat major chord. And then now you have the same pattern as the beginning of this passage. So again, I will change pedal once the figure becomes more quickly changing on the harmony. Now we're going to add the top. And here I will also change on every eighth note. Be very careful of all the notes. So now inharmonically, Debussy changed the note to E major. So here, although it's the same chord around the notes of C sharp E, G sharp B, but basically you can map it out for fingerings. Like if you can block all the chords within an octave, that's sort of your fingering. I like to think about that instead of keep changing. So again, here there you need to spend a lot more time on all the notes. I was trying to focus on just one spot at a time. And then here, I like to do my fingering this way. So basically the first three is 5, 2, 1, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I have my second finger go up for this note, and then come back down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then same thing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So knowing, have a plan for fingering is always very important. So try it out, and if it doesn't work, you can then change particular notes. So, and then right hand. And then now it went back to D flat. So for my left hand, since now we are almost playing Chopin with all the black keys, so you need to be very careful how you group your left hand. So after alternating between those two notes for two measure, then you run into. So I like to do 5, 3, 1, and then keep going up 5, 2, 1. And then coming back down with the same fingering. And that happens for a couple of measures. And try this in different groups of rhythm. You can do in 2 or in 3 or even in dotted rhythms until you feel very smooth. Okay, and then you can also choose whether you can curve up more or you can flatten out more, depending on how long your fingers are and how comfortable with each alternation is. And I like to highlight the melodies. Again, the whole time I am trying to not let this arpeggio pattern to take over the theme, even though it's a very important component to make sure those are heard and also being very even. So in this case, I'm going to bring out the left hand and also top of the right hand. And then now we come to this place. Sorry, I played wrong note. So the left hand doesn't change each measure, and then second measure. It's a little bit tricky to play those, so I would suggest you go all the way into the black keys so that you're not on the edge and then you have to compensate it by using your wrist. So again, find a comfortable spot where all 3 fingers of all the notes can happen at the same time. And now this comes to our last part. So now we're playing the theme 1 octave higher. So I'm going to invite you to try to find the most beautiful sound you could. Even though it says pianissimo, it still has to be heard. One thing I like to do is actually to breathe out when I need to play something really soft. There's one time my Alexandra technique teacher asked me to keep blowing out air while I'm playing, and then I've been trying to apply that when I'm super tense. For example, I have a piece of paper here. If I have to keep blowing air when I'm playing, it's actually very hard. I encourage you guys to try it out. So all of these patterns, find a fingering that works. So I'd like to use the same fingering if it works for a while, and then change it if you need to. Okay. I guess I'm talking a lot about the left hand because to play lots of notes in pianissimo is not easy, so your hand has to know where are you changing fingers. And so for example, this one I like to start from 4. So I do feel like, okay, I like to press them down and then wiggle them a little bit to find that right spot that I could just apply by a push. So you can see that I'm actually pushing a little bit like in an umbrella shape. And then so your hand needs to be very comfortable onto the white key, into the black keys. And this time is a little bit different because of this note. Because before it was, if you remember, this is the first time we have this combined with the D flat major chord. So think about that. This is 5/7 of G flat. So that makes sense why Debussy has been giving us such a question mark until right now. You feel like it's that's why it has to go to that G flat major. But then it only stopped briefly. And then keep going. I play wrong note, so that's a very important jump. So you go to the top. I like to always bring out the bass, so you have here, and then go back to A flat. To emphasize that, because A flat is the dominant of D flat, so when you find that, and then when you finally get to the end, is finally telling you that I am back to D flat major. But it also trying to tell you that, oh, I'm still moving. But even though it sort of tells you that I am going to resolve in D flat, let's see what happens. 1 octave higher. So you can hear D flat, F minor, and then even one more step. And then but finally so in music theories, I think Debussy did such a great job by doing all of this, able to sort of not tell you exactly what key it is, but still being able to write it musically. So I hope you enjoyed. So that's a little help on Clair de Lune. Hope you enjoyed.